Yeah, it's me, Dri. So I've been sitting with something this week, and I think it's probably one of the biggest realizations I've had since my awakening. And that's not because it's complicated, because it's actually very simple. Simple enough that I almost missed it. You see, for most of my life, I have thought that freedom, being truly free, well, I thought that that meant getting what you wanted out of life. And I thought that peace would arrive when enough things in my external reality finally lined up with each other. Like if I only had the right relationship, the right opportunity, the right outcome. Sometimes if the right circumstances or the right timing, or just simply the right life. But looking back on my life, I can feel it and I can see it. So much of my energy, my whole life, has been pointed outward. There was always something to focus on, something to fix, something that I needed to achieve, or something to heal. There was something to understand, and then there was something to chase. There was always something to worry about. The biggest is there was always something to distract me. And I really don't think I realized how uncomfortable I was sitting fully with myself. And it's not because I hated myself, and it's not because I lacked confidence. I guess I just hadn't met myself yet. Not fully, anyways. That old version was just trying to find all the outside, external ways to feel regulated, I guess. When I look at the last several years of my life, they haven't been easy. To be honest, they've been some of the hardest years I've ever lived. I've sat through cancer. I've sat through real life trauma. I've sat through betrayal after betrayal after betrayal. And then I sat through grief. And then I sat through being isolated. I sat through loneliness. I've sat through the collapse of nearly every single relationship in my reality, and none of them were at my choice. Well, not until maybe the end. But I've sat through the loss of identities. I've sat through confusion. I've sat through real life fear. And I've sat through moments where I genuinely had no idea what was coming next. And every single one of those experiences, they all presented me with the same choice. I could either distract myself from whatever the challenge was, or I could sit with what was in front of me. I could look away, or I could ask myself a question. What is true here? Not what do I wish was true, not what would make me feel better, and not what outcome do I want. Just simply, what is true? What is reality? Because I want to be in touch with reality, not in touch with false identities or versions or compatibilities. So I would just ask myself, what is true? And then it would be a matter of dissecting the situation and finding the true parts, and then it would be the question of what was true, and that if that was meeting my standard, or how would I adjust my standard, only factoring in the true. That was my way of dealing with anything after all that I had been through. And when I started asking what is true, that's where the hard part came in, and that was sitting with the answer. But even if I didn't like it, especially when I didn't like it, I sat with it. I accepted it. Because truth has a way of asking us to release things we really want to keep. Whether it's relationships, identities, dreams, stories, the version of a person, the version of yourself. Every time life presented me with something uncomfortable, I just kept coming back to the same question. What is true? And that question, my search for the truth, well, that led me into this healing, really. It led me into EMDR therapy. It led me into understanding my nervous system and then reprogramming it. It led me into understanding my trauma and other people's trauma. It led me into my tarot practice. It led me into developing my intuition, and then that led me into observing patterns. That question, it led me into understanding energy, even of the most complex kind. It led me into building my own business. It has led me into finding my voice. And none of those things were possibilities in my old life. For a long time, I thought all these things were separate too. So I thought learning tarot, that was separate. I thought I was healing and that was separate. Then I was developing my gifts. I was becoming more intuitive. I was closing loops. I was finding purpose. And now I think something much deeper was happening all during that time. Because what I was doing is I was committing myself and my life to truth. And I was doing it over and over and over again. And the unexpected result of this commitment to the truth, that's where I have found my freedom. Because somewhere along the way, something started changing. You see, the more truth that I found, the less distraction I seemed to really need. And that's not because I was forcing myself to become disciplined. It's not because I was trying to become enlightened. All of this stuff that I was doing, it happened naturally. The television started falling away. The constant noise, that fell away too. The need to stay busy, that went away. The need for constant interaction, that fell away. The need for validation started disappearing entirely. And the need to always have something to look forward to, that dissolved. Really, the need to constantly think about the future, that left altogether. And what was left when all those things left and fell away? All that was left was me. Just me. And to my surprise, I wasn't trying to escape anymore. I wasn't looking for the next distraction. I wasn't looking for the next relationship. I wasn't looking for the next outcome. I wasn't looking for something that would finally make me feel okay inside. Because for the first time, I already felt okay. Even the drinking fell away. And this whole realization hit me harder than almost anything else. Because for most of my life, comfort has always come outside of me. My comfort, it came from staying busy. It came from my relationships. It came from entertainment, even achievement. My comfort came from having something to chase, from having something to anticipate. My comfort came mostly from distraction. But somewhere along the way, all of that did change. And I don't think it's because I isolated myself. It definitely didn't happen because I withdrew myself from life. And not because I stopped loving people. But it happened because I became comfortable with myself. I became comfortable with my own thoughts. I became comfortable with my own energy. I became comfortable in my own body. And I became comfortable sitting in silence. And what that really leads me to is that I became very comfortable sitting in presence. And now, when I look at my life, everything that brings me comfort today, all of it exists within me. It doesn't come from another person. It doesn't come from attention. It doesn't come from validation. And it surely doesn't come from distraction. It all comes from me. And I think that's why I realized something has fundamentally changed. Because today, my favorite place to be has become with my own company. Even over the poker rooms, guys. I haven't played poker for weeks. So, whether I'm building my business or creating my content, developing my gifts, or learning something new, or simply sitting with my own thoughts, I genuinely enjoy all of those things. I enjoy just being there in those moments. And if you've really known me for years, if you grew up with me, if you were around me, this statement alone would probably shock you. Because I used to spend so much energy looking outward. Now I spend most of my energy cultivating what exists within. And what's fascinating is that this shift, it didn't make my life smaller. It's made my life so much bigger. Because when comfort comes from within, well, you stop needing the external world to regulate you. You stop needing outcomes to make you happy. You stop needing life to look a certain way before you can enjoy it. You stop waiting for your life to begin and you realize it's already here. And that's when I noticed something else. My intuition has been getting stronger. My card pulls are getting cleaner and clearer. The patterns that I'm seeing are becoming unmistakable. And the synchronicities, those are getting too hard to miss. Or not miss. I lost the train of that sentence for a second. I don't know. I guess the things that I questioned when I first started on this journey, those things are becoming things I trust almost immediately now. And that's not because someone told me that those things were true. It's because reality has kept confirming them to me over and over and over again. And for a while, I thought those were separate developments. I thought my intuition was growing while I was becoming more comfortable with myself. But now I don't think those things were separate at all. I think they're directly connected and intertwined. Because when you think about it, intuition and distraction, those two things cannot occupy the same space. And so, the less noise I had, the clearer my signal becomes. And the more present I became, the more I noticed everything. And the more I noticed everything, the more truth I was able to find. And the more truth that I found, well, the more truth that I found, the less distraction I needed. And that in itself, if you can tell, created a loop. But this loop that I'm on, this truth loop, it's a beautiful loop. Because this loop is one that completely changed my life. It's what saved my life over and over again. And it's what led me to a realization that honestly, it gives me chills every time I think about it. And especially when I landed. I don't know if you can see them. Ooh. But that realization is that every shift I've experienced in my life has come after I stopped arguing with something I already knew. Not after I manifested harder. Not after I visualized harder. Not after I wanted something more. But it was always after I accepted a truth. A truth about a relationship, about another person, about a situation, a truth about myself. I accepted them all. And every major shift came after that acceptance. And once I started seeing that pattern, well, I couldn't unsee that, because what I've seen is that reality always seems to reorganize itself after I accept the truth. Not before. Always after. Like fully accept it within your bones, truth. And that's when my entire understanding, I would say, of manifestation altogether has started to change. And it's all been this week. And what I'm thinking is, I don't think manifestation is about getting anymore. I think it's about truth. I think most people are trying to create a reality while simultaneously fighting the truth that's trying to emerge. And that creates friction. But when the truth finally lands, when we stop negotiating with the truth, when we stop trying to make reality be something that it is not, that's when something starts moving. It's like reality finally receives a clear signal. And maybe that's the magic. Sure feels like magic. But this is not creating something from nothing. This is removing everything that isn't true. So maybe manifestation, for me anyways, it's not wishful thinking. It's truth thinking. It's authenticity. It's alignment. It's becoming so honest with myself that reality can no longer reflect anything except what my inside claims is true. And because I've built such a strong relationship with truth, that's the magic of why it works. Because these are not false truths that I'm convincing myself of. These are real truths that I'm experiencing and feeling in my bones. don't know, the more truth I find, the less distraction I need. The less distraction I need, the happier I become in the present. And the happier I become in the present, the less attached I become to outcomes. And the less attached I become to outcomes, well, the faster my reality seems to move. And that's not because I'm controlling it. It's not because I'm forcing it. It's because I'm no longer splitting my energy between truth and distortion. You see, I used to think magic was something I was trying to create. But now I think magic, it really appears naturally when I remove everything around me that isn't true. And this very well may be the most important thing I've learned along my way so far. I'm not sharing this because I've only seen it happen once. I'm seeing my reality shape, reshape, over and over and over again. So this message that I'm bringing, it's not an idea in my head. It's the truth that I've been living. And that's what I got for y'all today. So remember, where there's love, there's light. I'll see you guys again soon.